not come back to the law. But, as I said, you could go left or right. I ended up taking that turn, and I ended up joining the diplomatic corps. And one thing led to another. So I put the law behind me.
But that's fascinating, to go into the diplomatic corps and to work in Afghanistan. What year were you in Afghanistan?
2019, 2020.
Right. So it was just about the time it was all going to get handed back.
Yeah, we left. I got caught out. I didn't do a full year because I was on my last R&R. It's a very structured year. So every 60 days or so, you've got to go on vacation for,
Right.
20 plus days. They don't care where you go. You're just going to leave Afghanistan. And, when you're married with a wife and kids back home, you're going to go back home. My colleagues that were not married or encumbered with family, they were taking these amazing vacations to Thailand or Vietnam or Europe or wherever. Very jealous of those guys. And you're getting a little extra bump in pay too for the danger pay and the hardship pay. But in my last R&R, that was when COVID was descending. And I remember we would not go to the civilian air terminal at the Karzai International Airport. We would actually be heloed over to a secure camp next to the airport that the State Department had. We would spend the night in a CHU, containerized housing unit, basically a Connex box, a shipping container.
Yeah.
And then you get in an armored van and you'd go across the tarmac to your airplane. So you'd enter the airplane from the side door up the stairs, like the baggage handlers. And we were on the van. Oh, I should back up a little bit. I was due to leave actually the following week. And my boss came to me after a morning meeting and said, "Hey, when are you going on R&R?" I said, "Oh, I'm doing about 10 days. He goes, "You might want to see if you can move that up earlier. I'm not sure you're going to be able to get out of here in 10 days. So there's a whole world going on in the background that I was not aware of. So I called down to our transportation office, or I emailed them actually. And I said, "Hey, I'm just investigating, is it possible to get a little bit earlier?" 20 minutes later, they emailed back and said, "Okay, you got the 1620 Hilo over to Camp Alvarado, and you're on tomorrow morning's flight, Turkish Air to Istanbul onto Boston." I was like, "Oh, wow, that was quick." So I didn't realize they were trying to push people out because they saw the sort of COVID curtain falling. And they realized that if it is as bad as they say it is, we don't have the medical facilities to handle this. In our medical backup, we had a very small clinic at the embassy, on the embassy compound. Our medical, if you broke a leg, you were going to be medevac to Bagram Air Force Base. And Bagram was basically saying, don't look at us, dude. We're all out as well. So you cannot count on us. So if you had a cough or a sniffle in the past at the U.S. Embassy, if you were if they had a medical record of you, they were inviting you to go on R&R a little earlier or to medevac out. And they were just signing everything. They were like, "You're gone, you're gone." And I didn't realize that was happening in the background. They were trying to shed numbers, shed personnel. So I got out. It was just before St. Patrick's Day in 2020. But on the van ride over to the plane, my coworker shows me the phone, and Emirates had announced that Emirates and Turkish Air had announced that they were ceasing operations into Kabul as of like the following Saturday. This is a Wednesday or Thursday morning. So it was like the last plane out of Saigon, a little bit. And we have all these rules about Fly America and U.S. flag carriers, and whatever plane lands in the U.S. has to be either a U.S. flag carrier or have a code share agreement with a foreign carrier. Yep. All that, you could get waivers for that. And so I was able to land, because previously I'd landed at Istanbul International Airport, and I can see the Turkish Air flight going to Boston. I can't get on it because there's no code share. I've got to fly Lufthansa to Frankfurt and then connect Lufthansa back to Boston. So they just elongated my travel day by about 15 hours. So I was able to walk off one plane, 2 hours, 3 hours later, I was on another plane. So I left on the 19th or 20th of March, and I think I arrived home the same day, which to me is kind of a mind bend. That you can leave Afghanistan and I'm back home in Boston the same day.
Incredible.
Which is amazing. And then I wasn't able to go back. So we actually teleworked for the last couple of months.
Right.
But I worked in public affairs. I was a deputy spokesperson. So a lot of our work ended up being the care and feeding of our local staff, trying to make sure those guys are taken care of, making sure they have the tools and equipment they needed. We still had to sort of feed the beast. We still have to produce our daily news summaries and make sure that leadership is aware of what's happening on the both traditional media, social media, et cetera. So we have to monitor all that stuff and make sure the embassy's leadership and State Department leadership is aware of what's being said in and around Afghanistan.
Oh, it's a great shame when you look at the hundreds of years. There's always been conflicts in Afghanistan, and what I've got friends who have been out there in battle, and the people that have died, and now I was just reading a paper that the Taliban are getting even stricter with female members of.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised it took them this long, the way they behave. And I might as well jump in with a lawyerly disclaimer that the views that I express on this podcast are my own, entirely my own, and not the views of the U.S. government.
Yeah, no,
I'm
absolutely.
retired, happily retired. I will say that on the best of days in Afghanistan, it was challenging.
Yeah.
There is a cadre of Afghans who are ready to sort of take the mantle of responsibility. There's certainly a group that are very anti-American, not just the Taliban. But then there's that soft middle in between that just want to be left alone, do their thing.
Yeah.
And there's it wasn't enough of a groundswell to sort of push the Taliban out. There was not enough of a brain trust in Afghanistan to sort of take all those jobs that are necessary to make the trains run on time, so to speak. To be the local mayors, the municipal works director, to sort of make a habitable society. I mean, Kabul does not have a fully functioning sewage system. And think about that, a major capital city.
It's incredible.
And when you flush, you're never sure where that's going to go. So they are backwards in a number of areas. But I've met some extraordinarily capable Afghans who, but for overwhelming adverse circumstances, would be fantastic in leadership positions in Afghanistan. And I always lament, when you meet these Afghan expats and, they don't want to be a baggage. I've met them at Logan Airport, checking me in for flights, and they don't really want to be at Logan Airport living in Boston. They love Afghanistan. And shockingly, when you look at the numbers of Taliban, there's not that many. I think it's less than, active fighters is maybe 80,000, 80, 90,000. I may have my numbers wrong, but that kind of force, they control by fear. I mean, they're a brutal group. I had guys that worked for me. I had one guy that was stopped and arrested twice by the Afghans, when they had control of Afghanistan the last time. Once because he rolled into a checkpoint in his car and he was playing music on his car radio, and he was totally forgot he had music on. That's forbidden. And they sent him to a re-education camp where you listen to an imam preach day in and day out until they kick you out. And the other time, he's a great guy. He's a bit of a bodybuilder boxer. And I don't want to use the term metrosexual, but I mean, his hair was always just incredibly perfect. And his beard, what's that black color, Vanta black, that deep black color. I mean, just this amazing beard. Handsome guy, big guy. And he takes care of his physical form and his grooming. This guy's on top of it. And I think he had trimmed his beard. Oh no, Taliban saw that, back to the re-education camp, which he escaped from. They're so loosey-goosey about things. He was able to get free, and they didn't know who he was, and he just went home.
So they're so unsophisticated in the way that they carry out their business. And the public at large, like you say, there'll be the middle ground that just want an easy life, and you'll have those who want to fight against, and those who don't like the Americans, the British, and anyone else who's interfered. We haven't interfered. We've gone in to try and help. That's the thing.
Well, I think the U.S. foreign policy, believe it or not, doesn't really change administration to administration. Every new president comes in with some grand ideas, some grand initiatives, but the day-to-day retail diplomacy that we undertake is really, I always sum it up as, a rising tide lifts all boats. If we can foster democratic principles and economic opportunity in different countries, those two things, if you can get the population invested in those two things, suddenly you're being upset about, they have that, why don't I have that? I will fight them. Or they're from a different ethnic group. They're not this person, they're that person. We've been at war forever. If you've got a job to go to every day, So I'm like, well, I got to get to work. I'll worry about them after work, and then it
Yeah.
becomes less and less of an urgency. You're taking care of you and yours, and that's really overall what we try and do.